Very good. Well, hey, y'all. How you doing today? Good afternoon. I am just honored to be here. It's such an exciting privilege to be closing out platform number 2 for this conference. Man, I have had such a terrific time with all the sessions. It's kind of flared up my imposter syndrome a little bit, to be honest, with some of the caliber of speakers that I've been able to attend sessions here. It's been absolutely fantastic. In case you didn't pick up on my accent, I'm from the southeast, the U.S., so I'm going to say a lot of things that you probably, I hope you can understand, okay? One thing I want to, do you have bears here? I'm just curious. Well, I used to work for this company where we talked about punching bears. We use it as a metaphor for like doing awesome things, doing really hard things, going up against, bigger competition. We'd say, get out there and punch some bears today. Well, in real life, punching a bear might not be such a great idea, as it will only provoke the bear. And this has nothing to do with this talk. I just thought you'd like some free advice. So some of you are really excited. You've been, going to sessions the past 2 days. You've been soaking up a lot of great content, and you can't wait to get back to your workplace and unleash all of your new knowledge onto your unsuspecting coworkers. But some of you, on the other hand, may be like me at a lot of these conferences where I'm starting to get a little overwhelmed by all the new technology and ideas, and you're thinking, man, I don't know, how am I going to learn all this new stuff? How am I going to convince my boss to let me do any of these things? And here I am to give you some more information at the end of the day, right? You're probably thinking, well, you've probably learned about IoT, about how IoT is such a hot topic. We should be connecting all of our devices and all of our appliances to the internet and reaping all the benefits. You probably heard about the latest JavaScript framework that was released just, yesterday. You should be dropping everything that you're doing and use this new thing. But I'm here to talk to you about what if I told you that regardless of the technology that you know, regardless of the job title you have and the amount of experience that you have an incredible opportunity to impact your workplace, your family, your community in positive and meaningful ways. Let me tell you a story about myself, a cautionary tale, if you will. When I started my career, I was doing a mix of IT and programming, and I absolutely love solving problems with technology and fixing things. I couldn't believe that I got paid to do this stuff. I had so much fun, working with computers. But then a funny thing happened. I was promoted to a management position, and I hated it. All I wanted to do was write some code, and I'm an introvert, believe it or not. I've taken the test to prove it. And, getting up from my desk and going and talking to other people to ask them what they're working on and that kind of stuff, that was just not even remotely in my nature. So I resented the role and responsibilities. I did the bare minimum to get by, and within 18 months, I took another job where I could get focused on programming again. And this cycle of promotion to management and despair and finding a new job repeated itself several times. And my wife would ask me, what do you have against making more money? Well, my ideal job consisted of give me the fastest computer available, give me a virtually unlimited supply of caffeine, and stand back while I sling some code. You know what I'm talking about? It wasn't until many years later that maybe through some mentoring and maybe a little bit of maturity that I began to realize that my attitude towards everything outside of writing code needed an attitude adjustment. And I've had to come to terms with being a leader, and I want to give you some things that I've learned along the way. Now, first of all, you might be thinking what I used to think, and that leadership is only for management. And I didn't want to have anything to do with management. But that's not correct. Leadership is not just for management. It's not to say that there aren't some aspects of leadership that are required for being an effective manager. But I'm here to just talk about leadership. I'm here to tell you that leadership is for all y'all. Now let me explain. I'm from Georgia, Tennessee, and when we say one person, you say you do this, or you, how are you? And if you got maybe a small group of people, 2 to 5 people, you might say y'all, for your group. And if you mean everybody, you say all y'all. So there are qualities and skills of being a leader that we all need to learn. Now, although this is not a talk about management, I will give you some quick advice. If you find yourself in a management position, it's okay to ask for resources. It's okay to ask for help. This is something that I didn't do. I was a little bit too prideful to say, hey, I don't know anything about being a manager. Can you help me out? It's okay to ask. It's okay to find a mentor or to ask your employer to help you with a mentor. Maybe this isn't what you wanted, but I would suggest that you embrace it and give it a try. That there are things to geek out about management and about leading people that you can geek out about those things just like you can geek out about software and technology. I know it sounds crazy, but there are lots of cool things that you can do. So don't worry about your technical chops, because just like riding a bike, you might get a little rusty, but you can still jump on that bike at any time. At least that's what I've come to find to be true. But most of all, be kind and respectful to people around you and help to empower them to do their best work. All right. So a couple years ago, I was working for this company, and we had this program called the Emerging Leaders. And it was a 1-year Leadership Institute program that we went to this training off-site, and we had our group was called the Emerging Leaders. And every time I saw Emerging Leaders, I thought it looked kind of like Ermagerd. And that's what I secretly called our group. And every 6 weeks we'd go to a new training session, and we'd learn some facet of leadership. We'd talk about conflict resolution, or team dynamics, or communication, presentation skills, lots of things. And I highly recommend a program like this if you can find it in your area, and convince your organization to create a group of people and do something like this together. To give you an example, one of these training sessions we went to, we talked about negotiation, and we role played. We broke into teams, pairs of teams, and we had this in the form of like a legal case document, some information about the case that we were working on, the terms of the negotiation that we were working for, and information about the other team that we knew. And each round of this role playing taught us specific skills and tactics for negotiation. The importance of doing research so that you not only know what you're negotiating for, but who you're negotiating with. This best alternative negotiated agreement called a BATNA. This is how you know whether or not it's okay to walk away from a deal, when you know that you can do something better than what you're negotiating with. And this idea of anchoring the deal, where if you're the first person or the first organization to throw out a proposed solution, the rest of the conversation kind of becomes anchored around that initial thing. So being able to propose a solution first gives you a strategic advantage. At the end of the day, our instructor cautioned us that our new skills were extremely powerful and that we use our new powers for good and not for evil. Well, about a month later, I found myself in the market for a new vehicle, and I did my research, and I knew what I wanted. I knew the options, and I knew what to expect from my adversary. And I knew I could walk away from a deal that wasn't better than my BATNA, my best alternative to a negotiated agreement. An opportunity presented itself the day that I went to get a cavity filled at a dentist, and this truck showed up on a car lot, and I thought, well, I'm close to my dentist, and I thought, well, I'll stop by there after the dentist. And I don't think I had gotten all the way out of my car, and, one of the sharks was on top of me. What brings you in today? That's the way we talk down there. And I said, well, I just finished going to the dentist, and I'm here to look at one of your trucks you got on your lot. And he says, buddy, research shows that the two things that people hate the most are going to the dentist and shopping for a new car. You must be tough. Indeed, I am. When we got to his office, he made the mistake of allowing me to make the first strike. And I anchored the deal, the number that I was confident, based on my research, was very close to their bottom line. And I had a lot more firepower at my disposal from my training. And after the dust had settled, I owned the exact truck I wanted, and I knew I could turn right around and sell that truck for at least $2,000 more US dollars than I had just paid for it. Walking away knowing that you got a great deal, that's a great feeling. And negotiation is a leadership skill that you can use both in your personal life and in your workplace. Being able to negotiate on behalf of your team or behalf of your company for more budget, more resources, more people, that's an incredible skill to have. Now, one of the books that our leadership team went through was this Ideal Team Player by Patrick Lynch. Basically, anything this man writes, you need to read it. He's pretty good at what he does. In this book, he describes 3 virtues that every leader or every great employee must possess. And this book can not only help you to identify and hire the best employees for your company, but also you can be a bit self-reflective. Like I read this book thinking, well, how do I shape up, with these 3 virtues? And to give you a quick introduction to those 3 virtues, the first one is being humble. And humility is characterized by not having an inflated ego, no concern for your own status, caring more about your team than yourself, and eager to share the credit with others. Humility, however, is a spectrum of behavior. At one extreme, you got someone who's the opposite of humble, people who are characterized by arrogant and self-centered, and politicians that cause division and resentment in their company. And at the other end of the spectrum, you got someone who almost appears to be humble, but can be just as damaging. They discredit their own talents and value to the team, and they won't point out problems when they see them. And I found that, wow, I've been more on this end of the spectrum in most of my career. I've been too shy or too, not had enough confidence to let people know that, hey, this is wrong. We need to be making changes here. I thought my opinion didn't matter. One of my favorite authors had this to say about humility. The heart of being humble is unselfish motivation for your team and your customers. When you truly want the best outcome for the people around you, you're going to act with humility. The second virtue is hungry. And unfortunately, this is not about food. I thought, I've got this one. No. So hungry is about passion and taking ownership of work. Again, there's a spectrum of behavior, and on one end, you got someone whose life is completely dominated by their work to the detriment of themselves and everyone around them. And at the other end, you got someone that's not very motivated and doing the bare minimum to get by. And we should be striving to strike that balance between, something that's manageable and sustainable. And the third virtue is smart. And it's not about intelligence, but about common sense regarding other people. It's characterized by being engaged and listening and asking good questions, being sensitive about how your words and your actions affect other people, and having empathy for your coworkers and your customers. To sum up, it's basically having respect for other people. Now, every important presentation has got to have a Venn diagram, right? So here it is. Humility, passion, diligence, empathy, sensitivity, all these things are choices that you can strive to make and skills that you can develop. And by doing so, you not only become an indispensable employee, but you can inspire others to do the same things as well. You become a leader. Did you know that different people have different personalities? Different people have different ways that they see the world and how they process information and make decisions and respond to conflict. Our industry tends to attract people with, let's say, suboptimal people skills. And we can be productive and get quite far in our careers on just our technical skills alone. And most of us, including myself, are much more comfortable talking to our computers than we are with the people that are around us. There are many behavior and personality assessments tools out there that can help you to gain insight into yourself and to others. And my favorite so far is DISC. DISC stands for some words. And those words mean things like action, whether you're action-oriented or goal-oriented, or you're more task-focused or people-focused. Now, a personality or behavior assessment is not 100% accurate, but it can provide a lot of useful information about how you can understand each other on your team and how you can work better together. And it's a fantastic tool that you can help to understand. Like, for example, some people are really deep thinkers, and they don't like surprises. Going into a meeting and announcing some big change and expecting them to immediately give you feedback on this change, that's not how they like to operate. They need time to process this new information so that they can come up with, most of the time it's really well thought out responses and feedback. And you need gung-ho people who are action-oriented, who can make quick decisions, but you also need people that think deeply about problems and can keep your gung-ho people grounded. Understanding behavior and personalities can go a long way to helping you empathize with your coworkers. It can also help you to influence others because you know how best to communicate with them and their personality. And a better understanding of your own personality can help you to develop strategies for your workplace. Just being able to articulate to your boss, hey, this is the best way you can communicate with me and work with me. It can make a huge difference in that relationship. Learning how other people process information and communicate can put you in an amazing position of influence. What's your greatest weakness? Don't you just love that question? You'll be in a job interview or a performance review, and you know it's coming because they just asked you what's your greatest strengths, right? So it's coming. And you try to be clever and say something like, well, you know, I just have to get things done on time or it kills me. It's a curse, I suppose. Well, another powerful tool I want to tell you about is this thing called the Strengths Finder. And this book and assessment is the years and tens of thousands of surveys by Gallup Research about how each of you has unique talents and strengths and knowledge and skills. And the Strengths Finder is designed to help you to identify your top 5 strengths and how to maximize those gifts. Because according to this book, that focusing a lot of time on your weaknesses is only going to lead to mediocrity at best. Because that's why they're your weaknesses, because you're not passionate about the things that you're bad at. You're passionate about the things that you can be really, really good at. When you're not able to use your strengths at work, you're going to have more negative interactions. You're going to dread going to work. You're going to dread getting up in the morning. And you're going to have fewer creative moments when you're in that zone and everything is clicking. Discovering and focusing on your top 5 strengths will have a far, far greater impact. When you're in an environment where you're empowered to use your top strengths, you're going to be 100% more engaged. You're going to be excited about the work that you're getting to do. And again, this Strengths Finder is a great tool that you and your team can use. Let's talk about multitasking. Our culture seems to be fixated on multitasking. We put it in our job descriptions and we put it on our resumes. I'm the best multitasker ever. You're lying. The truth is, none of us are as good at multitasking as we think we are. And our industry talks a lot about maximization or utilization, and how our teams need to be 100% utilized, right? But what is a highway at 100% utilization? Traffic jam. It's a parking lot. Exactly. And it's not just my opinion, it's math. It's true for traffic, it's true for fluid dynamics, it's true for electricity, and it's true for people and for projects. Now, you may have seen a circus, right, where kids love going to a circus, and you see this guy get into a cage with a lion, and we're all impressed that he doesn't get mauled to death. And now, the whip is cool, but what's the deal with the chair? Turns out the whip is for the audience. The audience sees the whip and is like, oh, cool, Indiana Jones. This guy's awesome. The lion doesn't care about the whip. But the chair is critically important. Turns out that lions have incredible powers of focus. That's what helps them to be predators in the wild. And when you put the 4 legs of a chair in a lion's face, the lion can't decide which of those 4 legs he needs to worry about. And so, in essence, the lion becomes paralyzed with indecision. And we are much the same way. When we have too much work on our plate, our brains become overloaded. We think we can switch from one task to another, but our brains can't stop thinking about those other problems that we're trying to solve. Those other problems continue to haunt us even in our sleep. How many times have you woke up and thought, oh, I know how to fix that problem? Well, that's because our brains don't stop thinking. And our subconscious doesn't stop thinking. It may sound counterintuitive, but do everything in your power to get your team to focus on one thing at a time, one task at a time. And it may sound counterintuitive, but I guarantee, I've seen it in practice. I've seen it work over and over again. I've personally experienced this, that if you can limit your work in progress, if you know lean and agile terms, you can get more work done more efficiently, faster, and at higher quality than trying to juggle too many things at once. Now, I submit to you there are three inevitable things in life. There's death, taxes, and PowerPoint. Sooner or later, it's going to happen. You're going to be expected to get up in front of an audience or a group of people, some of them may be strangers, and give some kind of presentation or information. And 2011, I finally got up the courage to give my first talk at a local meetup. And I was terrible. I absolutely stank. But a funny thing happened. I had people thank me for sharing this information that I presented. And I had people tell me to my face that I did a great job, even though I knew for sure I was the worst speaker in speaker history. It took a while for it to sink in, but I learned a really powerful lesson about the power of community. There are people out there who are really good at being human, who will look past your mistakes, who will give you the freedom to make those mistakes. They see the good and potential that is in you, and they encourage you to keep trying and not give up. Because when you do hard things like share your experience and your knowledge and skills with others, everyone benefits. Every day, I hope I'm a little bit more like one of those kind of people. And here's one of my favorite quotes. When I gave my first talk, people didn't remember how I fumbled around. They remembered me, and they remembered that in some small way, no matter how small, I helped improve their life or their career. In 2016, I had the privilege of giving a keynote at Music City Code, which is in Nashville, Tennessee, which is where I used to live. And I shared this same story about how I got started in speaking. And I had more than one person come up to me after the conference and say, I remember, I was there when you gave your first talk. And you're right, you were terrible. Thank you. And you might be thinking to yourself, well, I can understand being forced to speak or being voluntold, instead of volunteered, get it? Voluntold, to speak. Why would I voluntarily get up and give a talk? Well, let me tell you, there are lots and lots of benefits to public speaking, but just having someone not only understand that thing that you're talking about, but then be inspired to go and do that thing that you're talking about, that is one of the most rare and precious rewards I have ever received. I've given talks on different technologies, and people come up to me a year later and say, hey, we went and did that on our team, and this is the kind of stuff that we did. I'm like, wow, I would have never imagined going in that direction with that technology. That is so cool. Playing some small part in that is quite rewarding. And public speaking is an amazing skill that you can learn that will set you apart. It'll open doors of opportunity and launch you ahead as a leader and influencer in your workplace and your community. You ever heard of the Dilbert principle? It's the most ineffective, incompetent workers are systematically moved up to the place where they can do the least damage, which is management. Now, early in my career, I worked under a manager who exemplified this Dilbert principle, and I really didn't like the man. personally or professionally. And his incompetence was legendary. Mistakes were named after him, and yet he still continued to rise in rank and responsibilities. And a lot of work I had to do under this man was of no value to anyone. For example, I was asked to create a huge binder of documentation for every method and every stored procedure that was in the code that we were creating, and no one was going to read this ever. Meaningless and pointless work is soul-crushing, right? I toughed it out for more than a year, but with no relief in sight, I found another job. And I thought to myself, life is too short to work somewhere that stinks. And I started to live by this philosophy. I offered it as advice to other people when they would complain about their workplace. You see, in technology, we are very privileged that we're in such high demand that we have the luxury of being able to pick and choose where we work. And that isn't always the case in every profession. The problem is this idea began to pollute my perspective. And when things started to go sour, I'd think, oh, well, great, here we go again, time to look for a new job. And a few years later, I was in a similar situation. I was unhappy with my work, and I had a really attractive job offer, and I was trying to decide whether to take this new job. And that's when my wife, hello wife again, she asked me two questions that stopped me in my tracks. She asked me, have you done everything you can do? And if you left now, would you have any regrets? Fine. I declined the job offer, and I committed to doing everything in my power to make my team successful. In the end, I still left that job 1 year later, almost to the day, but I left having no regrets and being very proud of the work that we had accomplished. It had been one of the most prolific years in my career. Sure, there can be toxic environments and career-limiting situations and incredible opportunities that come along that justify a job change. But for anything else, I've got a new perspective. Life is too short to let things stay the way they are. We've all heard the phrase, that's not my job. I've learned that taking ownership and responsibility, whether it's in your job description or not, is the right thing to do. It's always the right time to do the right thing. And it's okay to ask, is there anything I can do to help? And again, it's okay to point out problems. Every now and again, we have to say goodbye to some people, some really good people that we work with. And regardless of the circumstances, we let them know how much they're going to be missed. And we might even throw a party and give them and we tell them about all the great stories that we have, what they'll be remembered by. One day it struck me as we were saying goodbye to some really good people, why can't we do this more often? Why do we have to wait until someone's leaving to let them know how awesome they are? Maybe if we had told them in the first place, they wouldn't be leaving, right? Well, in some cases. So I decided to run an experiment. Every Friday around lunchtime, I would post some tribute to someone that worked at my company. And this is one example. Nakoda was our support manager at the time, and he did the work of 10,000 men, as one person described. He consistently went above and beyond to make our customers happy. And he is awesome. Now, the drawing isn't important. It's just something fun that I like to do. And what I said about each person usually wasn't all that great or earth-shattering. The real magic is in what everyone else said throughout the day. story after story, encouragement and high fives. It was absolutely beautiful. All I did was start the conversation. Now, this experiment went on for about a year, and I had so many people thank me for being honored by their peers in this way. You see, every one of us wants to know that the things we do matter, that our work has value and significance, and that we have value and significance. Encouragement highlights a person's strengths and its positive reinforcement. Reflecting over more than 10 years of agile development, I've come to the conclusion that respect for people is the most fundamental principle. Usually we see respect for people and continuous improvement hand in hand, but I think respect is the more fundamental of those two. Having respect forces a company to remain true to the goal of a sustainable workplace where its employees can thrive, and listening and empathy and mutual respect bring people together to fight for each other and their success. If you know me, I can't go very long without talking about bacon. So I submit to you the highest award of excellence. And when you encourage someone, you inspire them to continue to improve and to go on to inspire other people. It's a virtuous cycle of encouragement and inspiration. Now, I grew up in a dysfunctional family and where there wasn't a whole lot of encouragement being shared, so it doesn't come very natural to me. This is yet another skill that I've had to learn, and you can learn too. Let me show you. Imagine you have a coworker named Mary, and you say, Mary, I want you to know that the database work that you do for our team is just fantastic. And not only that, but you're always smiling and being cheerful. You are such an encouragement to me and everyone on our team. Thank you. Paul, thank you for always being willing to help. I know I can always count on you for good advice to help me when I'm stuck, and it means a lot to me. You're awesome. Mark, thank you for always wearing deodorant and coming to work fully dressed. Keep up the good work, buddy. See, it's not that hard. So if there's someone that you work with that has impacted you in some way, recently or in the past, let them know about it. Don't wait until it's too late. Don't you wish sometimes you could just fast forward to the day when you have it all together and you have it all mastered? Unfortunately, there's no shortcut to success. We get out of life in proportion to what we put into it. And I'm telling you all these things not so that you can point the finger at your leadership in your company and say you're doing things wrong. I'm saying all these things so that you can look at yourself and say, what can I do to become the most valuable employee my company has ever seen? Or what can I do to empower my team to become the most valuable team that my company has ever seen? If your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, and do more, and become more, you are a leader. So said President Mutton Chops. He's got an excellent pair of mutton chops there. None of these things require you to be a manager or to have a fancy title, right? All right, I have one more story I want to quickly share with you. In the U.S., we have this holiday called Thanksgiving where we give thanks and are grateful for. In this particular Thanksgiving, it was tradition in our family to have like a family reunion at my aunt and uncle's house. We'd get in the car and drive 2 hours away and have dinner together and celebrate being together as a family. This particular fateful Thanksgiving, 1982, I found this in my cousin's bedroom. And I don't know if I spent the whole time, at this computer, but it certainly made an impression on my uncle and my aunt. So sometime later, my mom gets a phone call and we get back in the car and we drive to my aunt and uncle's house, and there waiting for me is a cardboard box with a TRS-80, ribbon cables, power cassette drive, floppy drive, a dot matrix printer, and this book. This one kind and very generous act launched me on a journey of computers and programming and a love for technology. And even the illustrations in this book must have somehow, planted a seed that I would later, in life decide that I wanted to do some illustrations too. I continue to be inspired by my aunt and uncle's example of investing not only in their family, but the lives of countless others. I can't thank them enough for the impact that they've had on my life and my career. You have an amazing opportunity to impact your family, your relatives, and your community, your workplace. You never know if some act of kindness, no matter how small, a word of encouragement or a small investment of your time, could be the catalyst that launches someone else, a young person or otherwise, on their lifelong journey of exploration, joy, and livelihood. So this is my challenge to you. Regardless of the technology that you know, regardless of your age, your job title, how many years of experience that you have an amazing potential to impact your workplace and your family, in your community and beyond in significant, positive, and meaningful ways. So I challenge you to go maximize your talents, take ownership and responsibility, go be courageous, go and inspire others, go and be awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, David. This was truly great.
Thank you.
Small token of appreciation.